Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Jiu-Jitsu. I hope you're doing well. So I know that some of our best videos have to do with how to help you become more successful on the mat. And one of the things I wanted to cover today has to do with how you think of a win. You know, we all know that when you make somebody submit to you, when they tap, right? That's a win, right? You won. But the thing is, though, making somebody tap isn't always going to happen, especially if you're a beginner. Now, if you're the shark in a little pond, then yeah, you're going to make everybody tap. And at the end of the day, that's not going to be all that fun because, people talk about, getting tired of winning. And yeah, I mean, it does happen. You do get tired of winning. That's when you start getting bored because there's no challenge to it. And jiu-jitsu is all about challenge. Challenging yourself, challenging your partner, challenging your body, challenging your mind, all that kind of good stuff. So I had a conversation with some students the other night, and I'm teaching them how to look at their success and how to become successful. And one of the things I mentioned was to not think of yourself as losing all the time when you tap out to somebody. That is the incorrect way to think about it, because if all you do is just repeatedly tell yourself you're a loser, you're a loser, you're a loser, and that you can't win, and if you go up against someone you can't beat them, so why even bother, then you'll never get better and you'll end up quitting, right? I've seen it happen many, many times. So my job for my students is to try to get them in a different mindset, because to be successful in jiu-jitsu, you have to be willing to take a chance, take the risk and possibly lose, because if you don't ever take a risk, you'll never ever get better. And that's one of the things, if you kind of think about an expert, right? Somebody who's an expert in their field. How did they become an expert? Because there was the very first time that they did something in their field and they were definitely not an expert. In fact, you wouldn't have gone to them to ask their advice on anything, whether it be a lawyer, a doctor, or anything, jiu-jitsu instructor. So what you need to realize is that in order for somebody to become an expert, they had to have been a beginner at some time. And once you're a beginner, you're going to do stuff and you're going to do something wrong. And you're going to learn from what you did wrong, and you're going to develop experience. And when you develop experience, that's just simply a number of outcomes that has happened. You lost some, you won some. But hopefully you learned from your losses and you had fewer losses going forward, because that particular loss that you did not do well in, you learned from it and didn't do it again, right? So, some people would say, well, the best way to learn is to just tap. Sometimes, I mean, I get the mindset, but in reality, if all you do is tap and you don't learn, then you're not going to get anywhere. At the same time, others say, well, either I win or I learn. And that is true. That is a more apropos thought in your, to be thinking about. What I do is I break it up into little small bites, right? That whole thing about, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? You can't just eat the whole thing. And think about eating the elephant is the win. Well, if you can change your mindset to be where every bite you take is a win, then you'll have a ton of wins till you get to the point where you eat the elephant in this case. Or if you're starting underneath somebody's mount and you think to yourself, man, I can't win from here because this guy is just too good and he just stays mounted on me. Well, that might be true. So here's the way you think about it. If you can get your frames set up under mount before he beats you, then okay, that's a little win, because prior to that I had no frame. So now I set the frame up. Once I set the frame up, then he can't stop it. I've worked all this time so I can get that frame in so he can't stop the frame. I can't do anything else, but I got the frame. Okay, so that's a win. I didn't get on top, I didn't choke him out or anything like that, but I got that frame in there. Now the next part is you lift your hips, right? If I can keep the frame and lift my hips, then that's a win. Because I was able to do two things when before I could do none. So you got the frame, you lift the hip up, and from there your opponent will then determine which escape you're going to do. Whether he falls over, it's upa. If he doesn't fall over, then it's a hip escape, right? So let's say he's going to, do the upa escape, or he falls over, so you're gonna do the upa escape. So I framed, yep, I lifted my hips, yep, and he shifted his weight above my head, his hands went on the ground. Now from there, the next thing is I need to take his hand out, one of the hands, and take the leg off the chair, so to speak, go from a 4-legged stool to a 3-legged stool and make him fall over. So you take that one hand out, but every time you take his hand out, he goes and takes it back out and puts it back on the ground. That's not a win. But if you can frame, lift, take the hand and keep it, and he can't get the hand back, then that's another win. Eventually you roll him over, you complete the upa, you end up in his guard, and then you're gonna pass his guard, knee on belly, mount, and then choke, right? So each of those things is a little win. All that you need to get to the point where you actually win and you submit him. So if you change your thinking of what success is to small little bites, it can be, getting out of mount and going to guard is a win. It could be passing his guard to knee on belly is a win, right? So those are all wins, but you can break it down even further. You can say, like I just said earlier, frame, hip up, take the hand out, keep the hand, get into guard, and then protect myself from the choke. Okay, I was in his guard and he couldn't choke me and time ran out. That's a win, right? Does that make sense, right? If you can think in those little terms, and guess what happens? Even if you don't tap your opponent, you don't tap anybody, but over the course of your training, you did 100 of those little wins. Well, guess what? You're a winner, right? And if you can think in that way and forget about the last part, right? So with regard to arm bars, right? It's about setting the arm bar up. That is, say, 90-95% of an arm bar. It's not the part where you actually extend his arm. That's the easy part. You need to take the wins from getting to the position and holding the position so he can't escape before you even think of extending his arm. Well, what a lot of people do is once they kick that leg over the head, they're already going for the arm. They're concentrating on having that arm before they even kick the leg over. So by the time they kick the leg over, they're off balance, they get put on their back, and your opponent gets his elbow out, and he gets on top of you, and you just think to yourself, man, that sucked, right? I can't even do this arm bar. I suck at arm bars, and I'm not going to do them. I'm just going to focus on chokes, right? But if you think in those terms, then you'll never, ever be able to finish an arm bar on anyone, except for people who are just really bad, right? But in order to finish them good, you have to take it one step at a time. As I say, you have to check all the boxes. You can't skip any boxes. You have to check each box as they come. So each portion of the arm bar, you need to check off, right? Even if it's just a tiny little one. And once you understand the motion to that depth, then think about when somebody's trying to do an arm bar on you. You understand it to that depth from his point of view, and if he doesn't check a box, that's where you take advantage of him. Right? And one thing that that's always been with the Gracies and with other Brazilians that I met, especially when I was in Hawaii, is that all the Brazilians that came to Hawaii to train when I was at Helson's place, they did it so they could surf. Right? Surfing is the thing that they like to do just as much as jiu-jitsu, if not more. Now, if any of you ever surfed, and you surfed in the ocean, as opposed to these facilities they have now, which really give you a lot of reps on waves, man-made waves, versus waves in the ocean. If you surf in the ocean, you're going to sit out there for hours on end, trying to get that one wave, or handful of waves, right? Nobody's ever really going to be out there for a few hours and catch 30, 40 waves. They might catch 5, maybe 10 if they're lucky. And there will be some days where you won't catch any until the very end, and you'll catch that one. What motivates somebody to sit out on a board in the ocean for hours on end just to get a couple of waves in that whole session that they're out there? Well, for them, that's the win, right? Okay, I just think to myself, all right, I'm going to be surfing today, and if I can just get one wave, that's a win, no matter how long I'm out there. And that's what they live for. They live for that wave. Now, that wave is, for us, it's a submission, right? If I can submit just one guy, then that's a win. But if I cannot submit one guy, let's say I'm a white belt in a room full of black belts, then what I need to do is I need to think, okay, what can I say is a win? If I can get under cross-side or side control, some of you call it, and if I can get to my side, I may not get back to guard, but if I can get to my side, that's a win. And if you can find a way to just get to your side and think of it to yourself as, yes, I won, right? Yes, that is a good way to think about it, right? Because if I turn to my side, he then has to move. Another way to do it, as I tell my students, if you can be in a bad position and you can do something to make your opponent move, then good. You just won something. Because if you couldn't make him move, then, because his thinking is, why should I move? I still have this position and you're not even getting out. Then what will happen is it's going to be kind of demoralizing if you can't even make a move. So you just have to think to yourself, what can I do to make him move just a little bit? Because if I can move him just a little bit, then to me, that's a win. And then the next time, you're going to go a little bit +1. So I hope that this lesson kind of helps you in changing your mindset so that you can always be a winner. Because you have to have wins for most of us. Me, I don't care, right? But because I've already thought past that, whenever I'm in a bad position, I don't think, oh shit, right? I just think, oh, okay, it's going to be a little while, especially if they're good. And that's the way you have to think. You have to be ambivalent to what position you're in. And you have to then find little places to take your wins. And don't have such high expectations on yourself to where you have to submit somebody in order for it to be a good day. Now, I hope this helped you, and if you want more on something like this, then let me know. I can probably do another video. I can elaborate and give you some examples, perhaps. Anyway, if you want to come visit us in one of our 2 locations. We have one in Flower Mound, Texas. That's Kama Jiu-Jitsu Dallas Fort Worth. We have one in Laguna Hills, California. That's Kama Jiu-Jitsu Irvine, California. You can also visit us online at KAATARO.com, and there you can sign up for our online content, which is really good. And by the way, Master Dave Kama is retired now, so we're going to be putting more videos up as time goes on because he has more time. And if there's anything that you wanted to speak to me, you wanted more time, you wanted to get on a call with me personally, then feel free to hit that Clarity link in the description and go ahead and book your appointment, and we'll get on the phone and we'll discuss whatever you want to. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Take care. Happy training. Bye now.